Samford has had your number the past 4 or 5 years. What has to change? How do you flip the script to your advantage this week?
Well, we've got to control the ball, and we've got to control the clock, and we've got to have positive plays on offense. We can't put ourselves into negative situations. And then on defense, you can't give up the explosive plays. You can't give up the quick touchdowns, and you got to make them drive the field and then play great in the red zone. It's really as simple as that. There's not a magical formula. You just got to be able to do those things, and then how well can our guys execute against their offense and obviously against their defense. And then I do think there's some plays to be had in the kicking game with special teams.
You talked a lot, and a lot of questions have been asked about offensive philosophy this week. How comfortable are you with the overall offensive philosophy, and will you change your spot, so to speak, depending on the week, the opponent, or are you who you are at this point?
No, we're going to try. We're always going to try to put ourselves in the best situation possible to win the football game. I think going into week 1, we had put a lot of time and effort into some spread looks and doing some things from a spread offense. We wanted to see. I don't think you ever know what your guys can truly handle until you put them in those situations. So when we came out of that game, we kind of understood, what we can do, what we can't do. And I've always said this. We're going to be a zone option team. We're going to do it out of gun primarily. But that's what we're going to be based off of. And we're going to be based off of running the football. And we've added some really good schemes and stuff that have helped us with that.
Home opener, always exciting. Players, coaches, fans. When it comes around, how ready will you be? How ready will this team be?
We're going to be ready. It's a big game. It's obviously a big game for us as a program because it's a conference game. It's the next game. These are the ones that you got to have. These are the ones that you want to make the most of. And, I think it's going to be exciting for our players to be back home. That's always a good feeling. Nighttime game. It should be a good environment, good place.
You and the senior class have never beaten them.
Yes, sir.
How big a subplot, a story is that for you heading into this game?
Oh, that's huge. That's one of those games. You go into your senior year. That's one of the teams you want to beat. That's a huge game, huge first home game. Hoping that we can just leave that game with a win.
As a senior leader, how good do you feel about the team's ability to bounce back from what happened in the opening game?
Oh, I feel like this team's very good at bouncing back. This team, especially the senior class and even the juniors, we've been through a bunch of adversity. There's many games last year that we were down a couple of touchdowns with, say 5-6 minutes left, and we've come back to win. So, I trust that, our team will do what they need to do, and we'll be able to, when adversity hits, they'll be able to respond to it.
I know I'm making you seem like an old man here, but your secondary overall is young. You talk about guys like Miles and Jay and their progression. What did you see from them a couple of weeks ago, and how good do you feel about their abilities moving forward?
Looking back, at film and stuff, and even in the game, I thought they played very well, especially for a first game. I know my first game, I was kind of antsy and stuff like that, and when you watch them play, it kind of seemed like they've been there. So, just being able to see them that first game and see how they'll improve throughout the season is very exciting.
Samford likes to sling it around. Doesn't matter who's a quarterback now, I guess. They're going to throw the ball around. They've got some weapons. Is that a challenge for you? Do you welcome that challenge? Is that better than playing against a team that's going to triple option you and you might get to break up one pass per game?
We always welcome that challenge, especially as a DB. You always like to, make plays when the ball's in the air. We're kind of hurt at the defensive line, which puts a little bit more pressure on us. But I know that in the back end, we'll be able to step up and make plays and hopefully make turnovers.
Your last home opener, personally, for you, how big is this?
It's huge. It's huge. Time's flown by. I never thought this time would come. The long summer spent, the long seasons. So it's exciting at the same time. I'm ready to go. I think the team's ready to go, and I think this 0-1, that first loss, has kind of sat on us a little bit, and we're just ready to show what we really have.
Did this bye come at a good time coming off the opener, or do you think it would have been nice to get out there 6 days later and try to correct things a little bit?
I think it was a good time, especially after a loss like that. It gives us time to look at the tape, see what corrections we need to make, and it also was just a good time for the guys to rest and get our minds right because we play Samford this week, conference opener, and that's a really big game to us. So I think this bye week came at a perfect time for us.
The offensive line, obviously, with a lot of hype coming in, returning all those guys, a lot of preseason honors. How would you characterize the play in the opener? Was it more that the defense did to you? Was it more that you guys didn't execute? When you come back and get some distance from it, how did you feel about the offensive line in that opening?
I didn't think the offensive line played great, but there were times where we were clicking. If you look late in the second half, even looking at the stat sheet, we had 3.8 yards per carry, and I think that's a pretty good stat, and that's something to be proud of. But watching the tape, there were many plays where if one guy does one thing, maybe it's a bigger play. But I felt like the offensive line could have definitely played better in that game. But I think there are some things that we can hang our hats on and be like, that's a good starting point, but we definitely need to build on that from here on out.
Samford has given up 104 points in their first two games. Some of that is overtime inflated, I understand. But when you take a look at their defense, what sort of opportunities do you think might be there?
I think, watching especially that Youngstown State game, Youngstown State, they run a big, heavy power scheme similar to our offense, and Youngstown State was able to run the ball on them very well. And that's really encouraging for us because we run a lot of the same schemes as Youngstown State. So I think, we don't really need to change up how we run our offense. We can just stick to our base plays, and as long as our offensive line executes, I have faith in our backs and our quarterbacks that they're going to do what they need to do, and we should be able to take advantage of what their defense presents us.
Opening night, home opener, conference opener, all the kids back on campus. How pumped are you for this?
Oh, I'm excited. Great to be under the lights back in Gibbs, and I'm just ready to put the pads on and start conference play.